right then, are we ready to go?
Absolutely, born ready.
I need an adjective.
Oh, adjective.
Effervescent. Okay.
Effervescent. Effervescent and iridescent, please.
Effervescent and iridescent. I'm not even sure I can say that.
Oh no, that's
too early for that many syllables. For me.
What time is it there, Whack?
It's 9:28.
Oh, it's not that bad. That's all right.
No, I woke up an hour and a half ago, but I'm not a morning person. I need a few hours before my brain starts to.
I rarely see 9
wake
a.m.
up.
to be fair. With me is my Oh, sake. What was it again?
Effervescent and iridescent.
Okay.
It's very good for words. They're just pair of adjectives for us. How hard could it be?
Anyway.
Yes.
We do have a structure to this show.
We do, honestly.
Which you blatantly ignored.
Yeah, well,
it's my fault.
Yeah.
Blame the guest. That's the way that you do it.
Yeah, we'll blame Whack. It's all his fault. So the whole crew, that's Matt Mercer, Marisha Ray, and the whole crew. I saw William Shatner there once.
Ah, those were the days.
Yeah. Anyway,
Did he do a spoken word album?
Well, he was hidden behind this curtain, and you had to pay 20 quid just to get round there, just to see him. And I was, I like him, but
I like him 20 quid worth.
Nah. So it got a little bit of a peep show vibe to it. I don't know.
It was a bit weird. And there was this line of, it must have been like 200 people there.
Yeah, wow.
All there already. What's that? 200 people times 20. What's that?
400.
4,000.
4,000.
4,000. Yeah.
4,000 pounds.
Yeah, he does all right for that.
That was a lot better back in the day.
Yeah.
Goodness.
What I would say, it's my favourite, second favourite, of the 5th edition modules. So Strada's number 1.
Mm-hmm.
Then I think it's this.
Yeah.
Then I think it's Out of the Abyss. I like that one.
Mm-mm. I think I've just started a playthrough of that, actually, the other week.
I wasn't so keen on the Storm Giants one. Which one was that?
That's
Storm King's Thunder.
Yeah, and there's Princes of the Apocalypse.
Yeah.
Again, maybe not my thing, but
Tomb of Annihilation. That is one that I personally would be super excited to play. Well, I'm super excited to be playing Horde of Dragon Queen, but I would very much love to play Tomb of Annihilation. That's definitely on my list.
Horde of the Dragon Queen was my first D&D thing because it was the first one that came out. That was my very first foray into Dungeons and Dragons. I played Pathfinder before, but I hadn't played any D&D, like straight D&D.
Arguably, if you're playing Pathfinder, you are playing D&D, to be fair.
Right.
They're all just different flavours of D&D, aren't they?
And I came into it with a seasoned role player plus 3 newbies. And that is the wrong campaign to play with newbies.
Yeah.
You do not want to look at that campaign with newbies.
No,
it's very difficult.
Brutal is how I describe it.
The most brutal start I have ever seen.
Please tell me it gets slightly easier. I'm loving it, right? But I don't know if I can keep playing that hard, that high level gameplay. Because I'm sat there. I'm a GM. There's another 3 GMs around the table, and we've got another player who's not GM but is really, and we've all GM'd D&D, right? So we're not noobs to the system. We know what we're doing. We've built for some good stuff, but it's still kicking us.
It's combat right out of the gate. Yeah. It's right off the bat.
It's interesting because that's the first one they brought out. Well, apart from the beginner.
And technically, you're supposed to start it at level 1 as well. Which
we have.
If you are, if you're familiar with 5th edition, until you get to level 3, if somebody sneezes on you too hard, you're dead.
Right.
I killed Peachy 4 times in that campaign.
you should give 1st edition a try.
Right.
This is when you have a wizard with 1d4 hit points.
A house cat, why?
Honestly, I have played a wizard with 2 hit points before.
Absolutely.
Whoa.
Put Rincewind to shame. If you're fleeing in terror, going, why, not this?
Anyway.
Yeah, that's right.
And they always do various events each year.
Mm-hmm.
Are you all right?
Yeah.
You're going to be fanning yourself.
Yes, hot ears.
You have hot ears.
I don't think I've ever seen that before. That's wow.
I've always thought that, Peter. You do have hot ears.
Oh yeah, absolutely. They're my best feature.
I'm just glad you've got them covered up right now.
Oh, why should I have to kill myself because you can't control your gaze? You pervert.
Anyway.
Moving swiftly on.
Or they might release just sort of... that's that sort of thing. You know, I say sort of all the time.
Yes.
That was it there. They release... what other news do we have? Do we have any more news? There must be more news in this.
No, you asked for all the news. You were promised all the news. And you have received it. Ha 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 ha.
More news. More news. News Digest. Let's have a look at Darryl's News Digest.
Ah, yes. Darryl is our editor, an amazingly talented man who makes us sound like people who know what they're talking about, as opposed to blathering idiots every week.
He edits out all this blathering, and we actually sound quite competent. It's amazing.
And he'll do that.
Wow, how many hours are we going to have to record to
Seriously,
make that happen?
sometimes it's 2.5 hours and he gets like 45 minutes out of it.
But it's been going up. We may be getting better. I think he may just be slacking. I don't think we have that much gold in us.
Hello everyone, your editor Darrly here. I did want to say the reason why the episodes are creeping over an hour more often and these deleted scenes episodes push half an hour most of the time is because Russ and Peter are getting a lot better at hosting a show. There's a lot more usable material rather than bits that just need to be cut or aren't really interesting on their own. There's less filler material, more on-topic discussions, and even the off-topic discussions are still interesting. Which you may be surprised to know actually makes my job harder because I then have to make editorial decisions rather than simple quality decisions when it comes to what content to keep and what to put on these deleted scenes episodes. Which is why you should tell everyone you know who loves the show to back us on Patreon at patreon.com/Morris so they can hear more of this great bonus content.
Is that tomorrow?
Yes.
Tomorrow.
Or yesterday? Depending on when you're listening
tomorrow.
to this. Yesterday, because it's Wednesday today, isn't it?
It's Wednesday if you're...
I mean, yesterday.
Yes, yesterday. Yeah.
So, if we look in the book, you can find out who did it.
Okay, 1 second.
The book's under the laptop.
Oh, book is under that.
Wax Stephen is sitting on the book.
Oh, God. Shift yourself, get off of it.
Right.
Go on. Wait.
Where are you? Where is it? Already tagonized.
I had to make myself look taller.
Cartographer.
Nice. Probably the same chat. And more than Jason, we like your work.
This is where you come to get your questions answered.
Absolutely. As long as you want to know how much something weighs, we've got you covered. You're like, what are these people jabbering about? What on earth could they be talking about? Yeah, we know how much books weigh. That's our claim to fame.
Now, here's the question: Do you put the measurement in stone up on the?
No, we're scientists, damn it. We use grams like a regular person. No offense. Also, they're books. If we had a book that weighed a whole stone, that's like 16 pounds.
There's no reason to bring freedom units into this, okay?
Right.
Oh, Pathfinder PF2. Have you been following that?
I haven't. I did mention before that Pathfinder was the pretty much the first system that I used for role playing. But after sort of using 5th edition and DMing between the two, and knowing that I mainly run shows, I prefer using 5th edition in general. I don't know like what changes they're going to make for 2nd edition. Though I am curious to know.
Oh, I can definitely see that D&D 5th edition is better for sort of live streaming than Pathfinder is.
Yeah,
because Pathfinder is just it's just that little bit of extra sort of heaviness that just kind of would slow the game down, and live streaming tends to be because I don't know if you're a typical example, but you guys, it's very, very freeform and relaxed.
He's an excellent example.
Whereas I think round a table things tend to be a little sort of more crunchy and less roleplay-y, if that makes sense.
Crunching those numbers, making sure that 5 footstep does not lead to your doom in a hail of opportunity attacks.
Yeah. I mean, that might just be me. Who knows? Yeah. But that's what I've seen. Anyway, I was saying about Pathfinder 2.
Yes.
Before we got distracted. Called Affair at Somberfell Hall.
Affair at Somberfell Hall.
Affair. Not affair, but affair.
As in, if I was going to give it a title, I'd call it the Somber Hill Affair.
Yes.
And thus avoid the ambiguity.
It's probably easier, isn't it? Yeah.
Well, it is for me.
Yeah, Somberfell Hall is not holding a fair. There is an affair.
Well, I mean, what people do in the privacy of their own bedrooms, that's really up to them.
I'm pretty sure Darryl can edit that bit out.
Yeah, well, if you just edit out the bit where Russ is speaking, that'd be super awesome. No, I mean, go on. What?
Is there like a podcast preview that you guys have somewhere, like when people download it? I was going to say that's the bit you should use for the preview.
That would be an awesome bit to have in there. No, we don't do that.
When you say awesome.
Awesome,
awful.
It's the same root word, and isn't that what's important?
Yeah. Where were we? Anyway,
a fair at Somerville Hall. Mm-hmm.
You're waving at your ear again.
Yes. Okay. If you kindly stop commenting on my oral comfort, that would be fantastic. Thank you.
It is a little weird, but
in the immortal words of Eric Cartman, "Ski guys, I'm going home." You know what? I'm really struggling to think of dedicated, designed player versus player PvP role-playing games. Yeah, I mean, can you think of any?
Of any player versus player, like games?
Games that are designed specifically to support that. Because, I mean, certainly that's not something you'd use Dungeons & Dragons to do.
No, I mean, maybe some of the Powered by the Apocalypse stuff. I mean, there's so many different games out there. I'm sure there's one.
There's elements, although those are very much focused on the dramaturgy, the storytelling aspects of the game.
Right. I'm not sure. I don't really...
Dogs in the Vineyard, maybe. Have you ever come across that?
I haven't, no.
Might be a bit before your time. Because if you said, 2013? I think, yeah. I mean, I've never actually had a chance to play it, but from what I've heard, that is where it would really shine. Yeah.
Could make sense. From what Russ was saying, I think it's exactly what he was talking about. It feels like it's probably a way to sort of sell merchandise more than any game mechanics. I don't personally think they're going to create a game based around that.
It seems like very different communities, from people that would enjoy playing Fortnite and people that would enjoy like playing a role-playing game. I don't know.
As a live streamer, we get people that watch this stuff for the first time that are very intrigued by it, and it happens a fair amount. Yeah. But yeah, I think you're mostly right on that. It's
sort of a competition versus cooperation vibe. Right.
Okay, I want to defend my inclusion of the Fortnite story. It's based on the statements that Hasbro's CEO Brian Goldner has been saying on shows such as Mad Money, attempting to link Dungeons & Dragons to esports and live streaming, as those are two big industry buzzwords on the executive investor side of gaming right now. Fortnite is huge in both of those circles, while Dungeons & Dragons is huge in live streaming. And it really wouldn't take much for Hasbro to throw small six figures at Wizards of the Coast and tell them to throw together a role-playing game for Fortnite. I don't know how likely it is, but I don't think it's quite as impossible as the guys and several comments on my column have indicated. If they had said roleplay in that same context in the same press release 2 years ago, I would have made the same assumption that it was for costumes and prop toys. Now, though, it's a lot more likely that they may be referring to a tabletop role-playing game.
A lot of people have very bad experiences with playing PvP cooperatively, because what can happen, I think the term I know of it as is, sorry, you'll have to excuse the scrabbling in the background. That's Russ's golden retriever Django. That is Russ. He's scrabbling at the door, and we haven't cut his nails for ages, so it's just like making this horrendous noise. He's walking along. Yes.
So you might need a manicure, Russ.
I don't mind.
Yeah. I was just saying, so people, like, quarterbacking is the term I've heard, which is where we're just talking about competitive versus cooperative play, and how some people really won't touch cooperative board games because of things like quarterbacking, where people have been telling them, you have to do this, that, and the other. These are the options.
I've got a friend. You know him actually, Jason Beckett.
Yeah,
he won't touch a cooperative board game.
Yeah,
he despises them with every fibre of his being.
I had noticed.
Yeah,
I
was on board games holiday with him, and like the man. Yeah,
I feel like I'm almost the opposite. I actually really enjoy cooperative board games.
I do too.
Because I'm very competitive. I'm extremely competitive.
Yeah,
and whenever there's a competitive like game, I think that there's people that have enjoyment in seeing other people fail as opposed to trying to win themselves.
To support them,
Yeah. Yeah, and so like when there's teams that form up, I get really angry. I'm very competitive, and
Okay.
I'm cutthroat at Catan. I'm brutal at Catan.
I tell you what I like. I really enjoy a traitor mechanic. I like a co-op game with a traitor mechanic. That's
I think Hitler type.
Yeah, like
Hitler.
Battlestar Galactica. You remember that one a few years ago?
Yeah,
really enjoyed that one.
My experience with Battlestar Galactica was tainted by the fact that I was playing with a guy who was not the Cylon. He was not the Cylon.
Right.
He just played like he was.
Okay.
It's like, dude, the PvP, right? That comes based on your role you get assigned. You're not just supposed to PvP everybody just because.
Okay.
Yeah. But I mean, competition and cooperation in role-playing games is actually something that can be a major issue. Like if the DM, because you said you're a very competitive man, I'll be honest, I can be known to be a little competitive myself from time to time. But when I'm wearing my GM hat, it's really important for me to be able to put those competitive urges aside.
Well, to be fair, if you're the GM, it's not really much of a competition, is it?
Well
you just win all the time as the GM.
Unfortunately, there are actually 2 ancient red dragons. So just
2 ancient red dragons, 7 Orcuses, and and a small army of Drizzt.
Is it like an orchestra of Orcuses? Is that the collective?
An orchestra of Orcus. I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. Okay.
New collective noun.
Is it Orcuses or is it Orcusai?
Ooh.
Orcai? Orcai.
Yeah, orchestra of Orcai. Assuming, of course, it comes from the Latin root, which seems unlikely.
Anyway.
Moving swiftly on.
Should be how's it kicking?
How's it kicking?
Yes.
That's never a better title. Russ, pay attention.
Yeah.
No, it's part of our charm. It's like we have extremely long, convoluted names. Like, for instance, the name of this podcast is Morris's Unofficial Tabletop RPG Talk. Pretty sure.
Yes.
Yeah, 95% sure that's the name of our podcast.
Yeah. Catchy, slips off the tongue.
Yes.
Lovely.
Yeah, absolutely. Slips off the tongue.
I'm just trying to find the Kickstarter thing.
Yes. No, it's great fun though. And if you're like, I have no idea what this is, just come up with something that you think would be an excellent game to play. And then
I got this. I'm ready.
You've got this. You're born ready. Yeah, I like it.
So how about you do 2 each, and then we'll see which of you gets the highest score. And the winner...
That won't be me.
The winner gets the satisfaction of seeing the defeated face of their opponent.
No pressure. Good luck with that.
The score is currently 9,999... No.
That's 2 points.
998,998 to 9... Oh, you know what I mean.
To 1 million. Chris.
Anyway, whack.
Numbers are hard.
Yes, numbers are very hard. Which I believe...
Okay.
Means he wins by 5 points.
5 points?
Yes, because...
1 point?
Yes, Russ.
What?
Okay. Go on, get on with it.
Yes.
Hey, well done, Russ. Yes. Good stuff.
Hooray.
I give you however many points you need to win by 1 point.
Excellent.
Whatever number that is. So, yeah.
So that was a 0. I needed 0 points.
All right. Okay. All right, I can't count. Fine. Don't rub it in. Well, mummies are Egyptian, aren't they?
Also,
Yeah.
South
Are
American.
they South American as well?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, it's a preserved corpse.
Okay.
Like all dried up and stuff, as
Okay.
opposed to liquefied.
Okay. I defer to your expertise in the subject.
You know, Russ, you said you like to listen to the podcast, so obviously you're not getting any of the graphical stuff. You know, we get a decent amount of people watching in the live stream, and you know, I feel if I don't do my best at something, anything that I do, it really bothers me. That's just the way that I was brought up. My father would always tell me, if you're not trying your best, why are you doing it? You know, it doesn't. I don't understand it. So I'm very anal when it comes to that kind of thing, and being a graphic designer, I have to put in the effort. It really depends on the show. because we generally get live streamers. We get streamers to play on these shows because we try and get different audiences, their audience plus our audience, or whatever. Try and mix and match, and then we get a lot of people that are new to the whole thing that maybe they played Dungeons and Dragons 20 years ago, and they said, I didn't even know that this was happening now. We get that a lot because there's players that are sort of very interested in min-maxing characters. There's players that are that like to be very silly. In general, they're going to be the bard that, takes their pants off as soon as they walk into the tavern, Then there's players that are the actors. They like to role play. I'm definitely one of those people. They like to role play very heavily. And then there's people that are just kind of all around, or people that are quiet or whatever. You get people that are rules lawyers. I try and get a little bit of everything.
Yeah, I've noticed you have a bit of a mix on each show, which is, I think, a good thing. You usually have someone who's really solid with the rules, for example.
Zakonicus is kind of my go-to guy when it comes to that.
I mean,
he loves reading rules. He'll read through a book 3 times before he does the
I used to do that. Not anymore. It's too hard now. Too much time.
When I first started doing this, I just went on Twitter and I had 0 experience. That's probably the best recommendation that I can make for someone. If you're just straight up intimidated by the whole thing, if you're just scared of dipping a toe into role playing, just do it. It's just jump in the deep end.
Yes.
Just play the game.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're not going to know what it's like unless you just play it.
I mean, a lot of people learn by doing anyway.
Yeah.
So you can tell them stuff for hours, but until they actually do it, they're not going to really understand what it is you're saying.
Yeah, I've had people ask, can I come along to your role-playing game club and watch a game? And obviously, as you know, that's a very different sort of experience because they might be expecting something like Matt Mercer, Critical Role, Wax Stevens and Warped, something like that.
Matt Mercer's not at your role-playing game club?
Well, not every week, no.
Well...
Yeah, but I'm saying...
I'm disappointed.
Oh, so should be. Yeah. Maybe if we had better prizes. No, go. And it's like, I'm like, it's really just one of those things where if you're doing a role-playing game, you want to be immersed into it. But at the same time, I feel like watching it, like, because when it's a professionally produced show, like you're doing, that's at the same time not the same thing. Is that fair?
It's not.
Okay.
It's definitely not. I think that's a very fair statement to make. Our show is very different than a tabletop role-playing experience.
Yeah.
When you talk about your players as a cast,
I've
noticed that's the term you use for them, and you've told me before about how sometimes it's hard to sort of match the right cast to the right show. What sort of challenges are there? How do you go about doing that?
That's a really great topic in general. I feel like I could talk about this a lot. That's the hardest part of doing a live stream show. 100%. I will argue, and I think this is just for DMs or GMs in general, managing your players and getting a committed time and schedule to do a game is the hardest part. It's the hardest part. I don't care what anybody says. It's the hardest part.
Oh, yeah.
Trying to find reliable people every week for your game.
And of course, there need to be people who can perform as well, rather than just play the game. They can't have on a show, because on a tabletop you can have that guy sitting in the corner who's quiet, rolls the dice occasionally, just gets involved when there's a fight or whatever. You can have that, and that's fine. Doesn't matter. On a show, I assume you can't have that. Everyone has to pull their weight, don't they?
Yeah, a lot of the casting choices come from experience and knowing the person's personality. Based on previous shows or based on the way that they live stream. Finding the right cast is difficult. I like to get a cast based on the system, for what's old is new. I find that players that like to be, that are interested in min-maxing, I think are going to have probably a better time with that system. We do a lot of role play, obviously, on our shows, but I think in general they're probably going to enjoy it more, and I want them to enjoy it. I want them to have a good time. It's going to translate well onto the show, and finding the right cast is tricky. We spend a lot of time doing it, probably more than people expect.
So how do you go about it? You approach people? Do people approach you? Are they mainly people you know?
A little bit of everything.
You put up ads on Roll20, that sort of jazz?
I definitely don't do that.
Oh, okay.
I think that that's a great way for people to get players. As I said, there's a lot of pressure when you're doing a show to perform. It's a much more relaxed environment when you're doing a tabletop session yourself. Yeah. It's very, very laid back. I'll give you an example. TwitchCon last year. The main reason that I wanted to go to TwitchCon was because I wanted to meet up with all my friends and run a tabletop role-playing game. Right. I just wanted to run that there.
Did you do that?
Because I never get to do that.
That
was the first one that I ever did.
Yeah, of course, you do everything online, so it's like actually having people around the table.
That's interesting. So how did you find that experience then?
Very different and extremely relaxing. And it's these are shows. These are produced. There's a ton of work that goes into it. Not that there's not a lot for the stay-at-home sessions.
It's not the same level of effort, I feel.
I brought City of Mist.
Nice. I was playing that on Saturday myself.
And it was a lot of fun.
Great game.
It's a lot of fun, and I definitely wasn't doing everything correctly, but there was no pressure. I didn't have people in chat saying, "That's not how you do that." You're the +2 that you're doing here doesn't make sense. It's nobody was doing that. Everybody was just very enthused to play, and they had a good time. And we played with a ton of people. I invited as many people as I could because I didn't know who was going to show up. And at conventions, it's crazy. Everybody's running around like a chicken with their head cut off. But I got as many people as I could, and we had like 8 or 9 people there trying to role play.
That's about as big as I've run, I think.
Yeah, actually, that was one of the things I meant to ask about. Like, it's possible, but hard, I would say, to run for a group of 8 or 9 people. Probably a lot easier with City of Mist because it's like a lot of 2d6.
For me, it was just a matter of finding people to do it with, and Roll20 gave me an opportunity to do that because, frankly, it's hard to find people locally. You guys live in the UK, so you've got more people per square mile.
Higher population density sort of thing. We don't have those
much higher
wide open spaces. Like I imagine in Kansas role-playing, a lot of it's going to go online, isn't it?
Yeah, so it's a lot harder to find people that want to play nearby. For instance, if I wanted to do it nearby, I did a little investigating. The closest hobby shop that I've got to me is about half an hour away drive. So when I was working a full-time job, I would have had to leave work, go immediately there from work, and it's farther from where I worked, so it's 45 minutes at least, and that's me coming straight from work to go role play, and then role playing for 4 hours, then coming home. I mean, it's exhausting. I didn't want to do that on a weekday, so Roll20 was kind of the choice for me, and it's snowballed from there.
Fantastic.
Well, what we're going to do is a bit later, we're going to really delve into live streaming just as a concept, and you're the resident expert on this, so we're just going to quiz you about the whole subject, and you can just share all your expertise and knowledge with us.
If that's okay.
Okay.
Because neither of us, you've never done it before, have you?
I've run a couple of games on Skype, but nowhere near the same
thing.
I
have never in my life role-played online. It's always been, around a dining room table or something like that, so it's a totally... It's interesting. I mean, you monetize it to an extent because you obviously make a living doing it.
We have a Patreon.
So how does that work? Do you find it's a good living? Is it hard to do that?
So we're getting into kind of a different area, but like income revenue streams are really important. Obviously, if you're doing this, if you're trying to make this your job. Not many people have done that successfully. As a warning, just if you're listening to this and you're like, "Hey, I want to do that. I want to be a full-time DM." First of all, it's not easy. No. Anybody that's had their own, their own business knows this. Number two,
immense amounts of work.
I was working as a full-time graphic designer plus doing 4 shows a week at one point.
That's a lot of hours.
it's a staggering. I mean, at least 60 to 90 hours a week, at least.
Wow.
And I did that for a few years, so it's not easy.
No.
No, I can.
It took me a long.
I can empathise with that. I mean, I like you. I'm basically self-employed essentially, and I'm basically working 24/7. There's no point when I'm not working. If I'm not working on something, I'm thinking about working on something, or I'm answering an email, or I'm, there's no point where I'm not working ever in some way, or preparing to work, or thinking about work, or anything like that. And I think that's the same for a lot of people in the sort of
creative industries.
Yeah, but anyone who's running their own business, which is, I guess, essentially what you're doing there, Whack, is, is pretty much on all the time. It's hard not to be. I mean, do you find you can switch off and just go and do something else and come back to it at 9 o'clock the next morning? Because I certainly don't in my line.
It's, I feel like yes and no. Since I make my own schedule, I have more freedom to kind of just say, I haven't seen my mom in a while. Maybe I should go give her a visit, during the day.
Oh, okay.
I'll say, hey, why don't I go buy some breakfast or something, and I'll go visit her.
This is like, obviously, we're talking years and years of intense work. Surely burnout is a very real risk. I mean, do you...
Absolutely.
What strategies, do you have any coping mechanisms you use to avoid that?
I think the key thing is recognizing when you are spending too much time on something. If you're staring at your screen trying to work and nothing is coming out, if you just have like a creative block, you're probably overworked. Like you probably just need to say, okay, I need to talk to my friends. And if they are telling you that you're overworked, you need to listen to your friends. And it's important to have those friends that recognize when you're working too hard. And kind of just to tie into the other question that Russ asked about just the income streams and such, and Patreon. Table Story in general has several income streams, and I think that's important for anybody that wants to try to do this. We have multiple income streams. We've got Patreon, we've got the channel itself, which makes money from subscriptions and tips, and we have sponsorships, like Russ is our sponsor for Warped. We're trying to introduce merchandise into things. We're trying to make as many revenue streams as possible. So if anything were to dry up or whatever, then we're still covered.
Yeah, so you're not putting all your eggs into one basket.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If you wanted to give a shout out to some of the people that you game with, because I noticed you've worked with some of them multiple times, as Zagoticus, as PC Pixel, and people like that. I mean, have you got a few sort of go-to people that you tend to go back to time and time again? Because I noticed they appear in 2-3 shows.
Yeah. Usually I try and bring really stable people onto shows as often as I can.
Of course.
As I said, wrangling the cast is probably the hardest part of doing all of this. And especially working with live streamers, they've got a lot of responsibilities. We have a lot of responsibilities in general. We're running around like crazy. We've got all these different commitments and everything. So I have, a good group of friends that I've accumulated over the years. Peachy Pixelate, Zagoticus, that are on multiple shows that are very reliable and good friends of mine, that don't really have giant communities or anything like that, but they're really good role players, and I can always rely on them. The more people I can get like that, the better. We try and we hoard those people, and we get them on different shows, and I recommend them to other people very often. But it's also important as a live streamer to get different audiences. So we do try to branch out as much as possible, and we get people that from different communities, maybe that we think are potentially good role players. They have personalities that lend themselves well to role playing, and they're interested in doing it. But yeah, we try and vary the audiences and stuff.
How important would you say, like, the ability to voice act is, especially for a GM like yourself, but also for a player, perhaps? Because I noticed that some of your players are, they're really, really great. Like I think Peachy has put on such different voices.
You mean Neil?
Oh
Baines?
yeah, that's a good one.
Right. Maybe right after I figure out this paperwork, I could continue on. I would say for me, I think it's really helpful for shows. It's not necessary to do the show, but I think it really does help. It helps differentiate staying in character, and some people get like confused with that thing, with that whole aspect of things, first person versus third person. Yeah. It's actually extremely irksome for me when I watch a stream and people are switching between first and third person all the time. It's very, very troubling.
It's better if they got the voice for it, though.
Yeah, it does help.
Yeah.
It helps. It helps you as a player, I think, too. You don't have to necessarily be good at voice acting. Just giving your character a voice that's different from your own is one that will help you get into a good mindset, I think, when you're playing the character.
Yeah.
I mean,
it will help people know.
It's really not in my skill set at all. Voices is not a thing for me.
Yeah, I mean, it's not necessary. It's just helpful. There's also people that like to play those very chaotic characters that are being combative or whatever, and having a different voice is a good way to know that that's not them saying that
right
thing.
Yeah,
and it can avoid potential fights, because that stuff happens. There's people that takes things personally. It's like, no, that was my character. And I think it's helpful for that. As for the show, it's a good addition. I'm not gonna lie and say I need it for every show. But if I had a show where everyone stayed in character the entire time and did a voice and things, it's a good sell.
That would be,
it's helpful. Liam O'Brien does it on Critical Role. He even stays in character when he's talking to people or talking to Matt. And I think it's helpful.
Yeah.
And as a GM, you do it too. I mean, how important is it for you to be able to sort of portray all the different NPCs?
Because I like to do the role play stuff, and I think I'm a decent voice actor. I like it. It helps me separate the NPC voices in my head. Any GM that does this, trying to remember an NPC's motivations, goals, etc., can get difficult, especially if you're in a situation where you're in an urban environment and there's a lot of people, and when the players decide to talk to Jack over there and Bill over there, and if you talk in a different voice for each of them, it's a little bit easier, I think, for me at least, to separate those people.
Do you have a sort of like go-to set of sort of accents and voices you can do?
Of voices?
Or do you find you can...
I think I just straight up, it just comes to me when I do it.
So you can sort of lend your hand to almost anything, given a...
It's difficult to do female voices. I think a lot of male DMs and GMs have a problem with female voices. And to be fair, I listen to a lot of audiobooks. There's only a few actors that I know that do really well with the female voices there.
I think with female voices, the best idea is just not to try, because there's people that just sort of just raise their voice a few octaves and it just sounds ridiculous. And
speaking in a sort of falsetto,
it's also quite insulting, I imagine, as well.
Very much. I don't think I've ever heard a woman speak like that.
How about? Do you want to try a little game? Try a few different.
Oh, we have a second.
Try a few accents out just for a laugh.
I know, super exciting.
See what you can do. Right. So how about we just pick a couple each and.
If you start talking about dialects in England,
no,
that's going to be impossible for me.
Right, it's not easy. Right, just a goblin. A goblin.
Goblin. Okay. So the typical goblins usually are, I think a lot of people see them as a bit crazy and a little manic.
Good goblin. I like that.
Something along those.
I could definitely believe that was a goblin.
You want to pick one, Peter?
Oh, how about a dwarf?
All right. So a lot of people see a dwarf as a typical
Scottish is the stereotype
type acts. I do sometimes like to break the mold there and go like with a Russian dwarf. I think those are fun too. But sure.
All right. A typical sort of dwarven voice, something gruff and a bit Scottish in general, bit something like that.
I'm impressed.
Yeah, I can't do that. So.
No.
I don't even know how to begin doing that, to be honest.
Well, yeah, I mean...
A lot of talking to yourself in the bathroom.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't do that either.
Well, you're missing out.
Yeah. And we have got 7 entries this week.
7 entries?
So,
Fantastic.
are you ready? Entry number 1
Okay.
was not an entry, just a thing.
Wow.
We've got 6 entries.
Woohoo! Listeners from Germany.
Oh, God, I've got to pronounce this one.
Okay.
Nicholas...
Buden?
Buden?
Ah.
Beudin. Buden.
I should interrupt you just for a second. This is the exciting part of the podcast where you too can have your name mispronounced by Russ.
Yeah. It's not my strongest. Okay, hello Morris. He does not mention you, Peter. Only me.
Offended now.
I am clearly the best.
Yeah. You keep
Big
saying.
fan of the show.
Yeah.
Let me know if you want me to boost and maintain the buzz around the Just Dread RPG on French forums and social networks. Yes, Nicholas Buden. We would love you to do that.
It's true.
It's not actually a competition entry, though.
Oh, in which case, thank you for it. Oh, down to 5. Well, it'll be all right.
That's all for this week. I want to thank our amazing patrons here at patreon.com/Morris for all your support. You make what we do possible. Until next week.